Some viewers may find this content disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Who dares awaken me from my slumber? Jade, Perilous, this is excellent to see you venture into the Fox Den for this episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on LordeStarfox Radio. Yet please allow me to feed. Absolutely delicious. And now that Jade has released my shackles and I am revamped and my power source is fully charged, it is time for the Midnight Society to take a walk into the darkness. My creatures of the night, yes, welcome back to another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on LordeStarfox Radio. This is the home of the Midnight Society. And yes, we do have a member stepping in and hosting with us tonight. She hasn't been here before, but hopefully she will be, because in real life, outside of this topic, she is one of my good friends. We have Jade Perilous tonight. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm great. How are you tonight?
This is excellent. I'm very good. Been super busy. Sounds like you've been quite busy yourself as well.
Yeah, definitely. I've been doing a lot of reading, doing a lot of artwork, been trying to get back into a little bit of the fashion business again.
Excellent. This is good stuff. Yes, to my audience, Jade is super talented, and she's going to be in 2 upcoming werewolf music videos with me, which is hopefully going to be dropping in the next few months. So it should be some really good stuff. And also, we will have any links up for you to follow her social media and keep in track and up to date with what she's up to. So yeah, definitely this is good stuff. What else you been up to?
Really not a whole lot, just kind of chilling, doing some meditation as well. Recovering from a leg injury, but
This is good. Yeah, I've broken myself playing semi-pro sports and I'm paying the repercussions every day. But I mean, what can you do? You just got to get better. So I understand that for sure. When we break ourselves as we unfortunately get a little bit older, duct tape and Gorilla Glue doesn't really work too much, you know?
yeah, you just got to keep moving forward.
Exactly. And keep the positive mind frame. This is excellent. So when it comes to cryptids, I mean, I'm not really. All right. I only cover what we have presented and what I presented to you, known as the Dogman, which we're going to dive into in a second. I am obviously aware of paranormal based stuff, etc., but I do not delve really into that. It's not that I don't find it interesting. I just don't have the time to put proper research to it. The topic I'm presented right now, I mean, I have 548 pages of encounters, sightings, people missing, and I just don't have any other time except to dive into the Dogman and the missing people until I feel I can get some clarity on that. I do, I guess, in the terminology of cryptids, meaning unknown species, put the Dogman into that. But also, when I hear the term cryptid, sometimes I feel like it's kind of some of the more bonkers type claims about things that are being seen. And the Dogman actually has a ton of science behind it. And I just wanted to pretty much get your input as to A, what maybe besides me trying to intrigue you about the topic, what inspires you or what caught your interest?
Well, you were definitely the one that introduced me to the concept of the Dogman. I was actually like looking into it. A lot of the stuff that was sent to me, stuff is going as far back as the Greek physician. I don't know how to pronounce this. Cestius, and people
Yes.
encounter, who encountered them in the mountains of India around 400 BC, just like how far they're going back. So it's not just us that's seeing them in like the 21st century, it's people seeing them like throughout history. So it's not just, so there's really like a historical basis in them.
Isn't that so cool too? Because I'm a super nerd in general and a geeker. I love to learn. I mean, history's always been cool when I was a kid, paleontology and dinosaur fossils. So yeah, I'm a nerd, whatever. But as a journalist, I do a lot of research. That's kind of the point, right? And as you just stated, wow, look how far that goes back. And then you have Herodotus as well, Alexander the Great. You have depictions of Anubis that fits into that category now with the Egyptians and Jason and the Argonauts. You have Marco Polo. You have Christopher Columbus. And let's just erase all that now as well. You have the Native Americans that actually would have had no connection with any of these cultures, again, seeing these things. That's why I feel like it's not so much of when people think of like cryptids, like Goatman, or I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. I don't research any of that stuff. I don't really subscribe to any of that stuff myself. The reason I subscribe to this, I've never had any paranormal activity. I've never seen anything. Craziest things I've had is a couple interactions with psychotic human beings, okay? But I do know, as you just stated, that look at these reports, how far they're going back. And I mean, sure, some people could be fronting, trolling. Yeah, but that's nearly impossible for every single solidified individual that I just mentioned to you, who wouldn't even, some of them had connections with each other to all be fronting. Okay. And that right there brings a ton of merit to the topic, because most of these other cryptids, as I stated to you, they're really not referred to in indigenous and historical references. So if somebody is so hell-bound like the Greeks on conquering and achieving greatness like Alexander the Great, let's be real. Do you think this individual really has time or cares to troll? I mean, he just wanted to be a god, basically.
Right. I mean, like, I don't think he just go around making stuff up just to do stuff for the gods, but I feel like they know that.
Right? Yes.
Yeah, so I don't think so.
And again, that's what's mind-boggling about it. And a lot of people just won't even take the time to be open-minded about the subject, because there's so much science there. I mean, that's why I have a science team, and we have a science team at the North American Dogman Project. We have a zookeeper slash biologist, an environmentalist, a geologist, a spelunker slash paleontologist expert, a master tracker. We have an individual that works with mental health that also has a ton of experience out with tracking people and animals. The reason I do this is because I'm just a journalist, which is okay. I understand that. And I'm not offended by anything. I'm not a scientist. I don't have a scientific backing. I mean, I'm telling you, and I would tell everybody else the same thing my science team tells me. But I understand, if you were a scientist or a person that is part of that field, why do you think I have, as a journalist, I mean, not to sound negative, but why would I be worthy to be sitting here having a scientific conversation with you without a scientific education? That's just how it works. Yet I'm okay with that, because sure, here, just talk to my science team, and they're going to literally reiterate everything I just spoke. But now they have all the letters in front of their names and stuff. And it's really hard to push them aside, because I mean, we have unknown vocalizations that don't fit into the range of what are known animals to North America. We have unknown tracks that look kind of like a human foot with claws on it. We have hyena-like tracks. We have baboon-like tracks that are occurring here throughout North America. We have people missing in the cave systems. All over the national forests, people are missing. I mean, what is taking? Where are these people going? They're disappearing. And the caves are one of the least explored areas in the whole entire world. And like our spelunker says, I believe only 10% really connect to the surface. And something like the short-faced cave bear, the cave hyena, those are some of the animals we believe never went extinct because only 10,000, 11,000 years ago, they supposedly disappeared. Well, that's not even long at all. And a lot of those look like some of the things people are seeing. And a short-faced cave bear spends around 90% of its life in a cave. Okay. It roams around and comes out and gets food and goes back in. So if cave hyenas and cave bears are still existing, and say you and I are out hiking and they come out and get us and pull us deep back into a cave, no one's ever going to find us.
Yeah, that's actually something like I didn't even think about. If they're really spending like most of their lives in caves, then we really aren't really spending the time and research we need to be doing into actually looking into the way they live and whatnot. And that sounds like something that really needs to be done, honestly, to find out if they truly went extinct or if they're just living their lives under the caves.
Exactly. And we know for a fact that they did live in there. Like our spelunker was saying, I mean, she's found some really cool things deep into the cave, and the environment is still, you can ruin it, meaning these tracks of old cave bears and such, the mud and clay is still like it was millions of years ago when that thing left it. So literally you could, or I could just take our hand and just ruin that claw mark or that track. But she's found raccoon tracks super deep in caves, and they were just chilling in there. And there was a point in time, I'm going to blow your mind, where there was a raccoon that was the size of a Volkswagen, okay? And a lot of people don't realize there used to be these things called bear dogs, okay? Because wolves, bears, raccoons, they all used to be in the same family group. They were called the Amphicenoides, and the Amphicenoidae was a bear dog, and from its hips, it's believed to be able to have walked quadrupedally and bipedally, which is the track pattern that we have reports of what people see and how these things move. And its arms would have hung down below its legs, and it kind of had some bent back canine-like legs. And this is before they all split off, because around this point in time afterwards, bears split off from canines, and as did raccoons. And for example, raccoons are related to like coyotes and foxes and such, and it's super interesting.
Yeah, that really is. I mean, it sounds like from what I'm reading in the Dogman or whatever, it seems like they have both characteristics of the dog and the bear. Because like I think if I remember correctly, a bear can stand on its hind legs, correct?
Yes. And for actually a pretty long period of time, if it really wants to. People actually don't realize that it could probably, yeah, easily walk 10, 15 yards, maybe even more if it wanted to.
I actually saw this story in the paper where I think, or no, I'm not sure if it was in the paper or where it was. I think or maybe it was a TikTok of there was a bear in like the woods of West Virginia that was he was walking on his hind legs, and it just because his forearms or whatever had been amputated. They're very capable of just walking on their hind legs and being bipedal.
Yes, and adapting. And that's such great stuff right there, because something that I try to really stress, and Linda Godfrey, rest in peace, she was probably the first person that I'm going to give credit for that really dove into what we call the Dogman. And she says she actually wishes she had gone with something else for a name, because it's not an actual dog man, but it has resemblances of something that looks canine, bearish, hyena-ish, and has capabilities of being quadrupedal, bipedal. Well, unfortunately, she recently passed away, and now one of my best friends, Jody Cook, is the founder of the North American Dogman Project. He would be the second in line to have done the most research on this topic. And he is from Ohio and is the leader and founder of the North American Dogman Project. Both of them, when I was a child, were the ones that really helped me kind of get on track of figuring out what was occurring. And like I said, a lot of people think, oh, dog man, it has to be a dog. But if you look at a hyena has nothing to do with canines or felines. They're related to mongooses and civets and weasels. Same thing with a baboon. Baboon has no sort of canine relation whatsoever, but I encourage anyone to look at a baboon's face: elongated snout, pointy ears. They have the glowing eyes, crazy fangs. They have hands. I mean, if that thing was banging on your window at night and looking in your window, well, I think someone could say, hey, that's a dog, man.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'd definitely be freaked out if a baboon was banging on my window late at night too. Like, I mean, so.
And we know throughout history, people like exotic pets, and animals are adaptable. So when all these kings and queens and royal people wanted animals, I mean, we know that they used to have large cats in the 80s, give or take, and then there was a law saying you couldn't have them anymore, but then people let them out because there was no in-between law about it. But then they came up with another part of the law saying, hey, you have to either euthanize them or put them in a zoo. That kind of ties into all the sightings of people seeing black panthers and suburban tigers and large predatory cats that aren't native to North America all across the country. Same thing with baboons, like I said, and hyenas. I mean, why would they have got up here? Well, either we didn't document it properly and they came up on the land bridge like every other animal, or they've just escaped from zoos and places potentially that maybe were experimenting on them, and they've been able to adapt. And that's a lot of what people are seeing potentially, because I encourage everyone to check this out. You can type in baboons entering people's houses, and literally this one climbed up the side of the building, opened up this couple's Airbnb's window, jumps in. The guy sitting at the table, he's kind of mortified. The baboon rips open the fridge, pulls out a huge chicken or turkey or something, and starts like eating it. And the guy's like, hun, stay in there. And then he goes to just get up, and the baboon looks at him and is like, the guy just sits back down. The baboon picks up like I said, the chicken or turkey, jumps out the window, climbs across on this little ledge, jumps down, and runs off. I was like, yeah, that's literally like a werewolf.
Oh my goodness, yeah, I can also definitely see like how the dogman or werewolf and some of these other creatures would be getting their characteristics from a baboon and how they would be sharing their DNA potentially. I think that's also maybe another way how these like creatures may be getting into North America, either like you said, undocumented, or maybe like escaped from a zoo that was doing some like illegal testing on them or something like that.
Mm-hmm. It's unfortunate, but we do know those things occur, and I agree with all of that. And well, I did send you those cases that you know about, but I'm going to just surprise you kind of here and just touch base on this one. I've covered this a few times, and it's most likely it is. It's definitely the most notorious one from Maine, and in the whole Dogman community, it ranks pretty highly. And it was the Martin family's encounter that happened up in Palmyra, Maine, on Madagascar Road. So the Martin family had recently moved into this old farmstead because the father had hurt himself and wasn't doing the best, and the mother was from this area and found work. And okay, so they moved in with their daughter and their dogs and them. Winter's pretty much the time frame, give or take, that they had moved in. Spring comes along, it's getting nice outside. The daughter wants to check around the property. Her boyfriend had come up to visit, so they head out, check around the property. They bring their dogs. A couple miles away from the farmstead, they come across this area that has what looks to be a strange burrow dug deep into the ground. And as they're approaching it, they can hear animalistic type sounds. Say it smells like fox urine. It reeks like rotting flesh, decay. And their dogs literally just yelped, put their tails between their legs, and bolted back towards the house. Well, the boyfriend was a little bit more curious, and as he approached more, well, those noises and the activity in this burrow seemed to amplify. The daughter and him ran back to the farmstead. He leaves, goes home, whatever. The father, Mr. Martin, and the mother are sitting outside on the porch, and they're just talking, enjoying the evening. The daughter's inside sleeping with the dogs, and all of a sudden they just said they got an uneasy feeling. They begin looking all around, and they see 5 human-like, canine-like creatures just sitting down with long-looking arms in this cornfield near the front of their porch with glowing eyes. And at first they were startled as what the heck what they were seeing. And they got up, turned around, and yeah, they were still there. So they ran inside, woke their daughter up, tried to explain to her. She obviously was like, what are you talking about? I'm trying to sleep. Well, sure enough, they look outside and these things had gotten closer. And now they were up to pretty much like the gravel that was connecting after the cornfield up to like their front deck. And they were walking around. So the father had weapons, but the mother wasn't about that stuff. So now that they lived in this farmstead, she made him put it out in the garage. He was like, what the heck? Like, I need to go get this weapon. And tries to sneak outside around. And as he's sneaking out and walking towards the barn, he sees these things still looking at the front of the house. He then goes and is about ready to open up the barn and then back up his truck too, and the light kicks on and he drops his keys. As he picks up his keys and looks over, one of these things had whipped its head over at him. Then all of a sudden all the other ones did, and they began moving towards him quickly. He runs back inside as fast as he can. They lock the doors, run up to the second story, and all throughout the whole entire night, these things are outside barking, chattering, and they could hear them like trying to dig in through like the siding of the house. They were trying to open the doors and windows, which were locked, and they even ended up jumping up to the second story where the Martin family was hiding together in the master bedroom because there was like a roof basically that looped all around, and these things were trying to look in through the curtains, and they could see them pressing their snout up and like basically the air coming out from them breathing in their pointed ears, and they would go quiet for a second, and then it would sound like they were communicating like, hey, we found a spot, let's try to get in through here. Literally all night did this and tried to get into the Martin house until the sun was about ready to come up, and they just all leapt off the roof and ran back to wherever they came from. After this, the Martins packed up their stuff and literally moved out like as soon as possible and put the place up for sale. I was not able to get a hold of the new owners to see if there's any sort of activity, but I did see some of the scratch marks and such that were all over the doors and things, and it's pretty messed up. And the Martin family, after telling their encounter, has never spoken about it again.
Oh wow, that's intense. Like the fact that there's scratch marks all over the place and that someone would even buy that home, knowing the risks maybe. Like, did they know the risks?
I don't know. That's a good question, because how do you tell somebody something along the lines of that? I've heard of cases where people don't tell people the houses are haunted and such. I mean, I don't know if that's the best marketing technique. Hey, or come by my discounted barn slash massive ranch that supposedly has 5 to 6 werewolf looking like creatures that tried to come inside and eat us. But don't worry, we're going to give you a hell of a discount.
It'll be like one Halloween experience.
Well, yeah, you know what I mean? So I just don't know. I guess maybe legally you're supposed to maybe say something along the lines of that, but I don't know again, like if that's even something that people would take serious. So yeah, they probably didn't say anything.
Yeah, you're probably right. But yeah, that's definitely some like real and intense stuff there. Like, I don't know, like the claw marks shaking down the house trying to dig underneath it. They're digging dens. Like, I mean, that's another side that they're probably living underground or living in like some sort of something that we don't see them out very often, and when we do, we see them at night. And again, maybe that's harder to document too. I mean, I that's definitely like real, especially with evidence.
That's what makes it super hard, because a lot of times it's a one person encounter or one person that sees or supposedly experiences this, but you now had a mother, a father, and their daughter. Sure, again, yes, they could all hoax it, but if they were trying to hoax, I feel like they would be speaking about it all the time, consistently at conventions and things, and they don't. They told their encounter, they moved, and that's that.
Yeah, for sure. They sound like more scared than anything. I mean, I would be too. Like, I feel like if they were really trying to get attention about it, they would just be telling it over and over and again to like every news or media outlet they tell it to. But like,
Yes, but they didn't. It's like the hoaxers on YouTube. I don't like to call people out, but you know, it's just like on my Midnight Society, everyone up on there, that's my squad. Those are the people I know that are honest and true. Yeah, there's a ton of like people out there that on YouTube and such that I know are hoaxers, and they're hoaxing their encounter. But like you said, they legit talk about it on every possible podcast all the time. You can literally find their supposed encounter on 30 plus different things. And yeah, they're trying to hoax. I mean, when somebody, in my opinion, tells it once, they're just trying to tell you what the heck happened. And that's that. I don't want to talk about it again. It effed me up. It scared me. We moved, but this is what happened. I mean, I'll answer your questions, but I don't need to talk about it again.
right. That's just like another piece of, I would say, almost evidence that goes towards like the the Dogman or something along those lines existing. Because again, they didn't like do like hoax behavior, like makes it again like points in that direction.
100%. And to my audience, Jade is up here in Maine with me as well. So these encounters are right in our neck of the woods. And we got another one right here, 1991, 11 p.m., Litchfield, Maine. Martha Stevens David is woken up out of a deep sleep to scratching at her window and the sound of something seemingly playing with her curtains. Chalking it off as the wind and her being exhausted, Miss David once again closes her eyes until she is suddenly startled awake by what this time sounds like snarls and the sound of overwhelmingly being in terrible danger. Rolling over and shaking her husband, Leo, awake, she begins telling him what she has just heard. Still waking up, Leo is like, "Hey, I'm tired. What are you talking about?" Until he suddenly hears the sounds and also sees the curtains potentially moving. They both described this animal sounded like it had journeyed a very long way to get to their open window and now was peering in at them, but just outside of their view. Being longtime Mainers and loving the outdoors, the Davids are very familiar with the sound of local wildlife, and they said there was nothing like this they had ever heard before. After what seemed like forever, Martha and Leo heard the mysterious animal run off into the darkness of the night.
I wonder what caused it to run off into the night rather than like wait until the morning like the other creatures did up in Palmyra. And it also, this was one creature rather than like a pack.
As far as they know, from what it had sounded like. And we actually have a hypothesis that we're trying to turn into a theory that we think these things just enjoy the fear and the chase, meaning likely at a point in time, if it could have, or if it felt the need to, it could have got them. That it's just kind of like messing with them. You know how a cat messes around before he eats his prey? Orcas do it too. They just play with things. It's almost like they like the fear. So whatever is being released into the tissue or the flesh when the fear comes out, obviously is something that these animals are enjoying. So we wonder if they purposely are trying to cause the terror and they enjoy it before they actually come in to finish off what they're looking to do.
Dang, that's like really menacing. It's almost like they could like smell the fear or feel the fear some way, kind of like, I don't know, like some household pets such as dogs can kind of like sense changes in emotion.
Yes,
States.
exactly. Any animal can pick up on that, which is why they say, don't look like you're a prey to a predator. Stand your ground, be like, look, Mr. Mountain Lion, sure, in theory, you might be able to mess me up, but I'm going to smash you with this rock and I'm going to fight back too. So is it really worth you coming at me,
Yeah, I wonder, has anybody that you know of tried that, fighting back against one of these things?
So there has been supposedly some, fatal encounters, etc., where these things just destroyed people. But there is also a lot of encounters where once you or I or somebody else starts with the aggression, they take it as, okay, a challenge too. Like one individual believed he had found what looked to be a Dogman nesting area. He didn't even think twice about it. He had to relieve himself, so he took a leak, not in the den area, but near the property of this supposed animal because he lived a few miles away from there and he had just put up a new siding wall, and at night something was scratching all over his lawn with huge claw marks, and something had took a leak all over his new wall, and it was like
Oh.
Yeah, it was. He said it was almost like a skunk type substance where it went all the way down his driveway, but it wasn't like almost like a regular urine because when a skunk sprays, it's like almost like oily. Yeah, and it reeked, he said, and he seems to think potentially that this thing was more or less saying back to you, hey, you know where I live and I know where you live now, so what's the move? Are you coming back or are you going to respect this was my area?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. That's exactly like what it seems like. You took a piss on my area, I'm going to take a piss on your area. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, pretty much. So it's straight up like messed up right there. And got two more for you before I let you get back to your busy night for sure, my friend. We got 2005, Wales, Maine. It's the middle of the night, and Mr. Michoud is suddenly awoken to his female Doberman Pinscher Guard dog going absolutely berserk outside. Quickly grabbing his flashlight, Michoud ventures outside to inspect the problem. He looks around but doesn't find what is causing his dog to freak out. He's exhausted, so he heads back inside and quickly falls asleep. Very confident his young, healthy 65-pound Doberman, she will be fine. Suddenly, just before dawn, Leo jolts up to the sound of his dog screaming in horrible pain and agony. Scrambling outside and over to the doghouse, he finds her covered in blood, all cut to hell from large scratch marks, and she was curled up in the corner of her doghouse. Upon further inspection, he found she was barely breathing and immediately rushed her to a local vet. She had to unfortunately be put down. 3 days later, around 2:30 a.m., Leo is driving down the isolated road to his house when he sees what looks to be a quote-unquote werewolf from the Howling movie trying to rip off the bottom of his door and messing with the door handle. After seeing the headlights of his car, the creature quickly turned and leapt off the porch towards the brush and proceeded to slowly circle Mr. Michoud's vehicle before dashing off. The following day, Mr. Michoud searched all around his property until he found these weird holes that seemed to be burrows that were covered in brush and branches. It also looked maybe potentially like a den. Feeling unsafe for his children, himself, and the remaining aspects of his family, Leo spent the majority of the day plugging up and destroying the den and surrounding areas of brush.
Dang, yeah, when I first read this, I was like, holy shit, that thing's savage. That thing, like, made it its prey. That's rough. That made me so sad for the dog and for Leo.
Yeah, it's terrible stuff. And we actually have an encounter from Ohio where a gentleman who bred German Shepherds, same thing, something broke into his kennel and unalived all his German Shepherds, and some were missing. So we went to look for them, and they all had their necks broke and were basically ripped apart. And this guy ended up moving out of Ohio after the same thing. He was just straight up terrified. So whatever is not scared to take on a Doberman and is not scared to take on a group of German Shepherds is something that's pretty terrifying.
Yeah, for sure. It sounds like Leo was very terrified too, especially after finding all these burrow holes. I mean, I would be too. It also seems though as if whatever this creature may be is afraid of light, because after it says after turning on the headlights, the creature kind of crept toward the car a little bit and then kind of dashed off into the brush. I don't know if it's afraid of being seen or if it just doesn't like light.
Great observation. And I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, you have animals that are nocturnal that aren't going to want to be around lights in general. And I mean, these things are spotted during the day, but when they are spotted during the day, it's in brush and dense areas. So it's not like they're right out in the light. And a ton of reports when people are banging their horns, flashing lights, turning on bright lights. It's not that if it didn't want to come in there, it still wouldn't. But yeah, that's what it does. Is it's not really big on the bright lights. And I've used this example before we get into this last encounter. I don't encourage anyone to do this, but I mean, take a flashlight and shine it in the eyes of your cat or your dog, or they're not going to like it. I mean, just the other night, I was walking across the street to my friend's house, and she was outside, and I was going to say hello to the dog because the dog's awesome, but the dog's apparently never seen a flashlight. And even though her dog, her name's Lily, she could smell us coming over. She was like, whoa, 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 going crazy. So I had to shut the flashlight off. And then she came over afterwards and then was like, oh, okay, it's you, but didn't really like that flashlight. I mean, she comes out in the day as well. So I just think it might have something to do with the artificial light as well, just not being kind to their eyes.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure that also has something to do with it. I mean, artificial light can be unkind to any eyes, though, as well.
Definitely, and causes like headaches and all this stuff. So no, for sure. And all right, yes, to my audience, we do need to let Jade leave here soon, but we have one more for you before, unfortunately, until next time, you'll have to wait. Summer 2007, Moosehead Lake. Remote cabin, 60 miles northeast of Palmyra. Remember that, Palmyra. So that's, I mean, 60 miles. It's not right near it, but it's in that vicinity ish. A woman is outside playing with her dogs at dusk. Walking inside to use a bathroom, she notices her husband, who is playing his guitar. He suddenly abruptly stopped mid song. Upon exiting the restroom, her husband turns and looks at her with a bewilderment expression on his face. The woman said her husband was pale and sweaty, looking as if he had seen a ghost. After asking her husband to talk, the man just kept looking out the window as if he didn't even know what had just occurred. Suddenly, he does explain to her he was playing his guitar only to see a huge black wolf like creature slowly walking by the window and making direct eye contact with him as it passed by, seemingly letting him know, yeah, I see you too, buddy. The man proceeded to tell his wife that the eyes were bright red and had the look of a natural born predator. The woman told her husband it couldn't have been a wolf. Wolves don't walk on two legs. This thing had to have been a black bear because this is a 6 foot window, meaning this animal would have been at least 8 feet tall. And the only black bear that could do that would be a pretty big one. And yes, they can walk on two legs. Fearing the quote unquote bear would attack their dogs, the woman scrambled to let him in. As she opened the door, both of them, ears pinned back, bolted inside, almost barreling her over. Looking around the initial area, she sees no sign of this bear or the animal her husband had mentioned, so she returns back inside. Around 3 weeks later, again, her husband sees this supposed creature and he tells his wife. He is very unsure of what he had just seen. She replies with, yes, he's a very skeptical person, and if he's telling me he saw this, he must have seen something.
My reaction to that is, again, there's more evidence there. There's another skeptical person that is saying that he's seen this creature. So there's one more person, and then the menacing predator-like behavior, where it's kind of like playing with you, sizing up your fear, is kind of referenced when it says like the husband seeing a big black wolf slowly walking by and making direct eye contact with him as it passed by. Like that's definitely some creature with no fear. That kind of, it's almost like it's like in like the Alien versus Predator movies.
Yes. And on a final note here, my doctor I used to work for, he went down to Florida for a convention, and he's like an outdoorsy kind of dude. So, and while other people were put up in the hotel, he wanted to camp and kayak basically. So he went out in his kayak, and what reminded me of what you said when the wolf made that eye contact with him, he said as he was out in his kayak, he heard a big splash. And as he looked over, he said there was this tiger shark that was much bigger than his kayak, literally with its huge black eye out of the water looking at him, basically sizing him up, being like, hey, am I going to eat you? Before it just whipped its tail and took off. And my doctor had said that he never felt so useless and meaningless in his life, just that he could have done absolutely nothing at that point in time.
Oh geez, yeah, that's definitely a unsettling and pretty scary experience to have. That's probably exactly how this husband felt in this encounter here. That's how I would feel for sure.
Right? Straight up. Well, thank you again for stopping into the Fox Den tonight and hanging out with all of us and talking about some of these gnarly Maine encounters. As stated, the Palmyra Martin case one is most likely everyone that does follow my show is going to have heard that before, but some of the other ones are not really reported very well, and it's good to get that stuff out there. So I like to try, instead of just reading them off myself, I like to have my hosts and guests come on and be able to express their opinions while also potentially hearing things they haven't heard about before themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a great time, and I also had fun learning some new things and getting to talk with you.
Thank you for everyone who once again stopped by tonight for this episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. If you do enjoy my content, please like, subscribe, and share it. Feed the algorithm, and I will see you on the next one.